Welcome everyone to the February 2021 Integration Downunder. Welcome everyone. We had a little bit of break over January, but now we're back started. Martin is one of the organizers from Perth, Dan from Brisbane, Renee from Sydney, Wagner from Auckland, and myself, Bill, from Melbourne. At the moment, most everybody's staying put because nobody can go anywhere. So that's all right. I did have a couple of announcements that we'll do. Is the Global Integration Bootcamp is going to be the 27th of February. And it's going to be basically a worldwide event. We're going to start about 10 o'clock Melbourne time and go around the world. I'm not sure how much is in the US because we didn't have that many people put talks in from the US, but we definitely have a full schedule from Asia Pac. So that'll be good. And again, the registration link for that should be out soon. The other one I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is, again, this year, the Ignite 2021. It's supposedly the second half of the Ignite they had last year. It's going to be the 2nd to the 4th of March. It's free. It's online. So basically, if you just go to that link, you can register up for it, pick out the sessions that you want to listen to, and basically get a lot of good information off that for free. And I think Dan and I and one of the other guys I work with are going to be hosting one of the table talks. I'm not sure exactly when it is yet, but I probably should find it in my emails. But it's I think it's Friday afternoon, about 4:30, isn't it, on that week, Dan?
I think it is on the 4th, yeah, which I think is a Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be.
I think it's a Thursday, yeah.
We'll tweet about it when we get all of it set up. So, okay, tonight's talk, we've got a lap around Logic Apps and VS Code extensions. It's part 2 of all of the new V2 of the Logic Apps. Wagner is going to do that.
Thank you, Bill, and welcome back from holiday, everyone. I hope that everyone had a really good break because we all needed that. Before I start, I just realized that I promised a lot of stuff on that talk, and after trying to put that together, I'm going to concentrate on a little bit less than we discussed before. Okay, so let's take a look at the agenda. But before that, just again, who am I? I'm now the integration practice lead at Theta, right? I'm also an Azure MVP for about 4 years now. MCSE on cloud platform, and one of the organizers of the Auckland Connected Systems user group. So if you're in Auckland, or if you wanted to, or New Zealand, or to be honest, anywhere around those regions and interested in presenting on our user group, get in touch with me. I'm also one of the co-organizers, as you see, for the Integration Downunder. Again, if you have any ideas to present or wanted to bounce ideas of how to start presenting or something like this, just get in touch and we can have a virtual chat, or if you're around in Auckland, face-to-face. If you wanted to contact me, you can send me a message on Silveira, right, on Twitter, or you can send me an email to wagner.silveira@note2self.tech. And from time to time, I've been writing on a blog post. Lately, is not like that often that I'm updated, but I still have some nice information there, and I'm trying to come back on the writing spirit again. So expect some more sessions, or actually some more blog posts in the near future. So what we're going to have on the agenda today. So we're going to start doing a quick recap of what is the Logic Apps runtime preview. So like what is the updates that we have there. Then we're going to be talking a little bit about debugging in Logic Apps, which is like when I started looking at that, I said, it's not going to work that well. As soon as I have an actually need for that, when I was doing my demos, said, hey, That's actually quite cool. So I'm pretty sure that you guys are going to enjoy that as well, because I kept my original bugs in place so we can debug together. There is a couple of really the new designer features, and that is mainly on the website. So I can take a quick look of that. And we can talk a bit about integration account changes, right? Plus, if we have time, Logic Apps and Net Gateway, but I think we're going to skip that one for today. I had a session on that on Auckland Connected System user group that I can push it to you guys, so we can have another session specific of that. Otherwise, we'll probably end up having a really long session. And I'm going to just touch on custom connection extension, because again, there is a lot of information to go through. And then I think it would be a good idea to have one session specific around that. Then I'm going to give you some references. So as I said, I thought about putting a lot of information on that, but I don't want it to do like 1+ hour session for you guys. So let's concentrate on some of the stuff that we can take out of this and go try straight away. And then we break some of the other ones in later sessions. So just recapping a little bit what we call in this Logic Apps runtime. So now is the idea of having Logic Apps running anywhere based on the Azure Functions runtime and the extensibility. That is give you like your choice of resiliency and your choice of computing, because now you can decide where you're going to be running this Logic App, what is going to be the high availability settings that you're going to be put in place, what is going to be the hardware that you require to run that. And that's give you a lot more control around what you're going to be paying at the end, but also how we're going to be dealing with that. So it put a lot more control back on you. Plus, it gives you the ability to actually run those Logic Apps on-prem, thanks to the Azure Functions runtime that allows us to run on this, as well as run it on different clouds, as long as you containerize that. Right? That means that Logic Apps is more and more part of your application, instead of like the distant cousin that is running integration and you needed to connect to your application. It gets much closer for everything else that you're running in terms of the application. Something that I remember John talking on Integrate in 2020. There is more and more we democratizing integration, not just with that idea of running anywhere, but as like much closer to the developers than it was before. One of the biggest things that came with that they needed to solve was the idea of how well Logic Apps would perform inside that environment, right? And how well Logic Apps would be performing because of the requirements that they have of keep records of every single thing that happens on the Logic Apps. So with that, they created now 2 models of Logic App. You have a stateful Logic Apps that keeps all the state of the Logic App in storage, right? And because of that, because you have the trigger that starts the Logic App, and you have all the steps that those Logic Apps executed. One, it allows you to do resubmission. And because of that, it increases the solution resiliency in a way, because you're not dependent on the initiator to resume or re-execute a Logic App, right? It supports all the triggers and actions from the managed connections, from the connections that you have today running on the cloud and running on-prem. And it has the run history enabled by default. That means that you can actually understand what is happening with your Logic App. On the other side, you have stateless logic apps where the states only exist in memory. Because of that, you don't have the ability to resubmit. But on the other hand, you have a much better performance because you're not creating persistent points every time that you run an action. Right? The caller now is responsible for any resubmission, and you can run that for up to 5 minutes compared for the other one that you can run for up to a year. This one only supports actions from managed connections. It doesn't support the some of the other actions. And in case of debugging, or when you want, you can enable the run history. So you still have the ability to look at what's happening there, but by default, that is not enabled to you. So those two models are going to give you a chance of creating logic apps much more closely to whatever requirements that you have in terms of performance, in terms of resilience, in terms of the supportability, and you decide when to use one of the other, and you can have both of them running on the same solution. But that's old news. This is something that we discussed last time. It's just a little bit of a recap. Now let's talk about the debugging logic apps. So if you are familiar and started using the logic apps on the VS Code extension, you see that when you create a logic apps, it creates one file called workflow.json. That is pretty much the logic apps workflow definition, right? And that's where you put the breakpoints. I think it's like everyone on the original view of that, we thought about putting breakpoints inside of the actual designer, probably rightly or wrongly, bringing back some old BizTalk Server memories on putting breakpoints on the orchestrations, but that's not exactly how it works. You actually put the breakpoints on the workflow.json, just like any other language, and you can use either the start of an action or the end of the action. First thing that I try is say, okay, let's see if we can put a breakpoint on the triggers. It didn't work, right? I tried, and we can try it again, but no, it doesn't seem like we can put a breakpoint on triggers, but you can put in each one of the actions. And putting at the beginning or the end is going to give you different results, which I learned while I was playing around today, trying to find like some good samples for a demo. The other topic that you're going to be talking today is the integration account support. So one of the biggest complaints that everyone had was, all right, so if I have a logic app and I need to use the liquid template, or I needed to use the XML and the XSLT, the operations, then I have to implement a storage account, but this storage account looks like really expensive when I try to sell the whole idea of micro billing, then I have to have a subscription on top of that. So it was something that was quite a hard pill to swallow when we're discussing with clients. And with the new solution, we use integration accounts now embedded in the solution itself. And right now, there is two components that they enable, right? Is the idea of having either liquid template operations or XML operations. And the liquid operations is going to give you conversion between a number of liquid templates, right? So you can do XML to text, text to XML, XML to JSON, JSON to XML, JSON to text, and things like that. While when you're looking at XML operations, you have the convert from XML to other formats using XSLT, right? If for us, that is still the know how to write XSLT, and the schema validation. For the BizTalk, the guys in the audience, probably the first thing that you're saying is, and what about the flat file schemas? Flat file schemas is not available yet, and they say that is on the pipeline. and it is on the backlog, but they give us didn't give us an idea of when is going to happen, right? Just bear in mind that part 2 of Ignite might bring a lot of those answers about what is there and what is coming. But I don't think you guys came here to look at my slides, right? So let's see hands-on, like both the debugger experience, the changes on the designer, and also a little bit of the transformations on both of them. So if I go to my Visual Code Studio, Bill, can you let me know if it's looking okay? If you can see the that, or if needed to make it a little bit bigger?
I think it looks really good, actually. I can
Cool.
read it pretty quick.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to open this Logic App demo. Right, I'm really inspired on names tonight. Open that on Designer. It's just taking a little bit.
Yeah, I've had a few instances where that designer's crashing when it's coming up, but then all of a sudden it shows up.
Yeah, takes a little bit. I found that as well. And on that one, let's start with actually start with the JSON or the liquid templates and XML templates, right? Because then I can use that, show that it's not working, and then do a segue on the debugger. So when you want to add any one of those new components, you just needed to add an action and look for either liquid operations that is going to give you all those type of operations, right? Transform JSON to JSON, JSON to text, XML to JSON, and XML to text. So that's what we need to do on that one. Quite simple. And here is one of the new things that you have now on the designer. Now you can right click and delete, which is quite neat. Then if you get one of those transformations, you just needed to include the content, right, of the thing, and what is the transformation that you create. But where do you find those transformations? You're going to find that in here. Now, when you're creating a new project, you're going to have a new folder called artifacts, and inside the artifacts, you have a place to have maps and a place to have schemas. I didn't include any schemas on that one, but shouldn't be too hard to create that, and you just included it here. And on maps is where you're going to have both XSLT schemas and liquid schemas. One thing to take in consideration here is this. If I add a new map and say this is one is the new simple.liquid, for example, that map is not going to appear on the list until you close the Logic app and open it again, right? And that gave me some grief.
Wagner, have you heard anything about, I know with the integration accounts, you could load up other assemblies that you wanted to use that were referenced in the maps, like we used to do in BizTalk?
I didn't try that one yet, Bill, so I didn't hear anything from that. Right,
but I hadn't got around to it either. So
yeah, so but it's something that I can try and report back. So that is one of the things that I found that was that you needed to be aware, because most of the time we were so engrossing on creating that, and all of a sudden I said, oh, I needed a thing. You create quickly the template that you wanted to continue, you needed to close and open it again. The other thing that I found, that I'm not sure if it was me or if it was the problem with the designer right now, was this. I came and I used a custom value, right? And my custom value was just let me hide this. What is my So instead of that, I'll just put the normal my item dot liquid. So the problem that I had with that one when I did this is, if I come and try to remove that and use one of those new values, it was keeping that my my value dot liquid, and we can see if it was just me at that time or if it's still happening. So if I open that one, seems like it's back to transformation sample dot liquid, so it should be fine. But before I was having a problem, and if you have this case, would be the case to remove the item and put it again, where it was keeping the value that was there. It was not updating after I put it first time. Actually, just let me do one more test just to double check if that's the case. So I'm going to get this. I'm going to change that one to new sample, save, and see if it's actually saving. If it's saving, it's good. If no, then that's where also the other thing was happening. See? I changed the value, but seems like the value is not being changed on the thing after you enter it first time. So it's kind of a little bug on the on that actual.
I think if you try going to another field, I don't think it detected the change because you didn't leave the field. If you go back into your designer.
So you need to go back to the designer.
Yeah, but no, go to the designer.
Yep. Then
go
come
into
here.
there, change your map.
Move
Take the cursor back up to there. Okay. And hide that and then save it.
So come back here.
Yep.
Try and save. So it's still kind of a bug.
Yeah, it is, but it's a field change bug they're keying on.
It's not.
No, it didn't.
So yeah, so something for us to report. The good thing is I actually need transformation sample right now, but that's fine. Okay, so this is the JSON template, super straightforward, right? And what I'm going to do with that one is I'll just run that, right? I run without debugging to start with. So it's doing a whole lot of cleanup. Right, it's almost there. So there we go. I have the Logic Apps demo and Logic Apps Stateless demo for us to run in a minute. Okay, so on that one, I'll just double check that we don't have any breakpoints. There is no breakpoints yet. And what you're gonna see, I'll try to get this out of the way. What you're going to see on that one is if I run the thing, just need to find my test, Logic Apps demo test. So I just running that using the HTTP REST client. and it's failing, right? Just let me close that. And it's failing.
If you turn on presentation mode on your laptop, it'll keep those pop-ups away.
Yep. So it should be fine for now. One thing that I noticed is this, right? When you get the error, it's sanitizing the errors. So I couldn't find exactly just by running this what the problem was. Then in this case, now let's try to do this. I'm going to stop this, going to get the workflow JSON, and I wanted to put something before, at the beginning on the transform XML to JSON, and at the end, right, to see what is happening here. Okay. And then I'm going to try to start debugging on that one. Just wait a little bit.
It's always slower when you're doing a demo.
Yeah. Okay, it's back. We can get our test. By the way, this idea of getting the test inside of the application using the REST client is really good. You run everything inside Visual Studio Code. Doesn't even need to run that using Postman for your unit tests. I really like how it's working here. So I'll try to run this again, right? And now let's see what's going to happen. So it stopped on the breakpoint. And if you look at the debugging, what I have here on the local variables is what is happening at this stage, right? So here is the context, and the context is the context of the last action that run. If you go to the results, now action. So here is the action inputs, and the results is what was happening before. And the variables, that's where I store my my content, right? So I can look at that one, a variable called content value, and the value of that is what is it? No, it's not here. It's a key value pair, content key string value, and the value content. And here is showing the actual value for me in here, right? Is content and everything else. So it's the actual string of that. So if I run that one more to go down to the end of this, we're going to say that how the action result of that and the end, we have status was failed, right? And if you look at the error object, here is the message, and the message value was try to find exactly where is given an error. The last name start tag on line 3 doesn't match the end tag of content on line 6. If you look back of our test, right, which I think I closed. Let's see. Go back to my test. I have content, first names, close last name again. So I didn't close that, right? So just let's finish that one, and it's going to give us the error. now that I found the problem, let's see if I run this one more time, it was give me the correct answer. So if I go again on that one and look at the end of the process, the action result of that should be status succeeded, right? So if I continue, it should give me the actual result, which is converting from the XML that I was sending to the JSON here, because the liquid template that you're looking on right now is just this. Created full name, first name on uppercase, font code area, and a list of devices. So it's exactly what it was supposed to do. Okay. So that's what you do when you needed to create the. I'll save that now because then I'll have like the right one on the next time. So this is how you do the debugging for a stateful solution. We can try to do exactly the same thing now for a stateless one, right? So if I open that stateless logic app here, which is this one here, right? So if I open that one, then what I'm doing on this, first thing that you're going to notice is that instead of using a variable, I'm actually using a compose. And I find out after our last meeting or last presentation that it actually makes sense. If you're running all of that in memory and is not persisting variables, it doesn't allow you to have variables on a stateless one, right? But the relative of variables on that would be a compose action. So what I did, I used the same idea for putting a compose action instead of the variables, and now I'm doing a transform XML, getting the outputs of the compose, using using the create attribute list XSLT, right, which is this one here. And what that one does is getting a message that has a root and then an arbitrary number of elements. It looks for the ID attribute and the name attribute, and after that gets any other attributes and create elements out of that, right? So if I have a message like this, where you have element ID 1, name 1, and parameter 1, parameter 2, it's going to create a my element 1 element. Sorry, a parameter 1 element and a parameter 2 element, and things like that, right? So again, since that one is already running, I can go and do a send request on that. And on that one, I already have some breakpoints here, right? But let's take a look at what I have here on the context. I have the list of actions, I have the triggers, I have the variables. So if I go to the next one and trying to take a look at the transform XML, the action result on that one is bad request. But the failure cause is coming as now. I can see the actual error and stuff like that, right? And the reason for that is because that one being stateless, it doesn't store that side, all that information for you to look at that. For you to actually work on debugging a stateless logic app, you needed to do one extra thing. So you needed to come on the workflow design time, and on your local setting JSON, Let me close all of this extra stuff here, otherwise it's going to be really hard to read. On the local settings JSON, you needed to add another a flag here for each one of the logic apps that you wanted to take a look. And that flag is something like this. Workflows.yourworkflow.operation options with stateless run history. So if you include that, on that, save, and then run it again. Blah, 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 let's run. What you should see on the debugging is a much better set of information there. Okay, so it's back. Then let's get the logic apps stateless demo, right? And run this. So get here. Let's see if we have like extra information on the variables. Example, the action result for the first one, that is the compose. There we go. I can see the input now, and I can see the output, which is good. And you're probably starting to see what is the error, right? But let's go to the next one. So I get here, and if I like the action results on that one, I have a bad request. And if I look at the error, I have, what was it? Actually, on the action result of that straight away. There you go. There is a message here. Message, unable to process template language. The provided content must be of XML content type, and it's not, right? Because, again, due to a typo, I have root and root. And honest to God, on both cases, was not me trying to actually get an error, was in both cases, me rushing up and doing things that a normal developer would do, like creating those typos without not even noticing that I was creating that. So let's finish that run. Let's give in the error, and you're going to see the same kind of stuff, right? The error here would be before it would be sanitized, but now we're going to be finding it. And if it run that one last time, should now get an OK, and it should be seeing the response with the message in the right format. So close that, close that, close that. And you can see that I have element and the attributes with the attribute name and parameters. So creating, pivoting that into that. Why do I have this? Don't ask. It was a project for a client like 2 or 3 years ago, where he couldn't use the attributes. It needed to be something like this. So at least I had like a really nice XSLT to use as a demo today. So this is how the debugging is working on Logic Apps Visual Studio Code. And this is how we can have the both liquid templates and XSLT templates now embedded, right? It opened a lot of doors for legacy applications where you can do like conversions from old XML to JSON, or even if you still needed to use XML to treat that inside logic apps without having to cost an arm and a leg. Okay. Just to finish this side of the demo, let's go down to the portal now. And look at some of the logic apps that are here. And if you go to edit, it should have now somewhere here the option for the new designer. I needed to create a new one for that.
Doesn't it have to be the logic app preview when you create it? Yeah.
No.
If you go look, there's two logic apps out there. There's a logic app and a logic app preview.
So the logic app preview, I have some here.
And that's got the new designer in it.
But the thing that I was trying to find on that one was like the toggle button for the new designer.
Did they put that on in the old logic apps already? Have they?
I saw some of those on the new ones. I'll double check that anyway, because this one already comes with the new solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like the new canvas and the old canvas, which is not making much difference here. But there is something that being in preview, so I'll double check. To be honest, that part there is not going to help us that much, apart from having a preview of how those logic apps are going to be looking like in the future. And just let me double check the time. Okay. So before we open up for questions, and then we can have a squeeze on the net gateway if you want to. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is just to give you like an overview of how it's working, is the idea of the custom connector SDK. So now, as part of that extensibility, you're going to be able to create your own connectors and deploy that together with your solution. That is going to be based on the Azure Functions extensibility model, right? So the same way that you were able to create custom connectors for a function or custom bindings for function, you'll be able to create custom connectors for logic apps. One thing that you have to take in consideration right now is because it's based on the Azure Functions, triggers and the binding for Azure Functions, you limited for the things that Azure Functions give you for now, which is you can either get that from a queue as a timer, from an event grid, or from an HTTP request, right? So you needed to use those four in order to create those custom connectors. The way that it works is you have to set a set of operation descriptions, like your triggers and your actions, and then the invocations for each one of those operations. And once you create all of that, then you should be registering that with your function runtime, because at the end of that, you're going to be creating kind of a package, and you have to register that package with your local runtime in order to be able to use that both on design time and at runtime, right? I didn't have the chance to create that because from when I started looking, there's a lot of coding involving at this stage, but I think it would be a really good topic for a future session. Either me or someone that would volunteer on that. Then I put a set of references here, right? If you wanted to see some of those things plus some other news that came out, like the ability of using application insights and seeing the logic apps and the connectors associated to logic apps on the live map, learn a little bit more about the new designer and things like that, you should be able to watch the last logic apps live presentation. Right, that was done in December, I think. And keep your eyes peeled to between 2 and 4 of March, what is going to be coming from the team on Ignite. I'm pretty sure that they're preparing some new stuff there. The VS Code extension info that I already have, you can go to that one. But and stateless versus stateful. But I also add one for logic apps debugging and the connector extension model. That one in particular, if you click on that, there goes opening, is a blog post on Tech Community, right, from someone, one of the engineers on Microsoft, that's actually going through, and that's from where I got most of the information to give to you guys, right? But that has like a step-by-step and how an example has been created for that, how the classes are looking like, and how you can actually implement that and deploy on the logic apps. Okay, so that's a really good one to follow through if you wanted to create a new component. And it's something that I'm planning to do for a future session, unless someone volunteers. Taking in consideration that it's like 10 to the 10 p.m. in New Zealand, right? I'm not going to extend more than that. I'll stop sharing now, and then we can having a discussion on what are the questions that you guys have and what we can do, what you think would be next ideas.
Yep. So thank you very much, Wagner. If you've got any questions, I've got the Q&A window that we can respond to. Aaron had one earlier about whether you could reuse those schemas and maps between logic apps, and you can on any of those logic apps that are inside that same project.
Yeah, so those ones now are part of your solution, right? It's different from when you have the integration account. On the integration account, you have like a central repository that could be used for any logic apps on that subscription. On that one, now you getting those artifacts and you're using on any logic apps inside that solution. If you have another solution, you have to deploy those ones to be used on the other solution.
Yeah, I did a recent project with the that had a bunch of helper logic apps that got called from some ones that were subscribing to topics.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a few of them over into the new V2 stuff. You could see those when you went to call the other workflows, you could see the local ones. And the good thing about that is that when I wanted to deploy those through the Logic Apps V1, I had to go munge the subscription information in the front of the helper one. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the new V2 one, it was local to that project. So they're all in the project. So the deployment stuff was going to be a lot easier for that.
Okay, so yeah, so that makes much simpler because they starting to actually connect those things as just components inside of the same solution.
Yeah, and I can see too, because I know this one that solution I was doing, I had about 25 logic apps, and it took forever to deploy with the ARM templates. If you have all 25 of those in a project now, it's going to be really quick and easy to deploy. Mm-hmm. We got another question. Can we use the BizTalk mapper to construct the XSLT inside VS Code?
As far as I know, no. I think as VS, the BizTalk mapper is still connected to Visual Studio 2015 or 2019.
Yeah, it's 15, I think.
Yeah, it's still connected to Visual Studio 2015 for you to create the XSLT using BizTalk mapper.
Go back
Right,
through my
or BizTalk.
tweets. Go back through my tweets. There was somebody that created, now that was for the flat file. There was somebody that's created a website that'll let you go create a flat file schema to use with Logic Apps in a website as opposed to having to run the BizTalk tool. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but the number of people I worked with wrote their own XSLT maps anyway. They didn't use the the mapper inside of BizTalk anyway.
Yeah,
so it just depends.
I get to a point where every time that I was starting a XSLT in BizTalk, I prefer to create the actual XSLT.
It was funny until about a year and a half ago. I was always used the BizTalk mapper, always was able to do everything I needed to. I was doing some EDI work for one of the companies and just could not get it to do what I wanted to do. So I ended up going into XSLT and I've been in XLT ever since.
Yeah,
so
I got a really crazy one like 10 years ago where I have to use so much XSLT, like using all those Moekin grouping and that kind of stuff, that after that I said, I think I know XSLT now.
Yeah. And I really enjoy the Liquid. I've been using Liquid for a few things lately. So
yeah, I was testing that on this. I didn't use it that much before, mainly because of the way that is working. So, but testing that today, I felt it's like really easy to understand. So now I'm going to be using more.
Okay, so there's another question from Garrett. Will Flow, Power Apps, Power BI, connectors also transition?
As far as I understand, no, right? Because the whole idea of Flow, Power Apps, and Power BI is having that for the citizen developer versus the actually putting that into a solution in Azure. So I have they didn't come with an answer for what's going to happen with the classic Logic Apps. If those two things are going to be like two models, you have either the classic, fully serverless, and the V2 where you can connect it to the function runtime and do the extra stuff. We didn't hear anything about.
There is some news coming soon on that.
I think so, but the Flow, especially Flow, that is the relative or Power Automate in this case, which is relative for the Logic Apps on the Power Platform. I don't think it would be transitioning from for that. Is not their market.
Yep. Another question Amrit has is about any out-of-the-box support to write unit tests in the new Logic Apps.
Not really a tool or anything like that, right? I think is probably the closest to that would be Spec Flow and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but yeah,
not really the like out of the box support for the simplification of unit tests. We still treat Logic Apps most of the time as black boxes.
Yeah, so that was an interesting. I was trying to do some testing with functions a little while ago. I needed to run the function to get some information out of it as part of my build, and you really can't do it. You can do unit tests of the C# code, but you can't actually spin the function up in the build process. And I'm thinking that the Logic Apps will be similar to that. So as part of the build process, you're still not going to be able to run because you got to launch that runtime and things like that. So I don't think that, but it would be interesting because the code's really not code as we know it, because it's in the JSON. It's going to be hard to do a lot of that unit testing.
The assumptions or the assertions and stuff. If you wanted to test the internals of the logic app is going to be really hard, right?
Yep.
And the same thing with the functions. Unless you create the function and you get the function, push it out to a class that executes your business logic, and then result goes out, you kind of locked. Because the only thing I would think on that one would be restricted to the HTTP connector, running that on a container on a build server to then run the things. But after you're starting to think about all of that, how much the benefits of that at the actual unit test is going to give you compared of all the hassle that you have to put all those things in place.
Yeah, I was thinking in the background how to make the container stuff work, and there will be some trick that we can play in the build pipeline to get that stuff into a container and then to launch the container. But it's going to be a lot of work.
I run that in terms of like putting the things in a container and running inside a pipeline, not for functions, but I did that for something that was like web jobs. So there is commands for you to put inside and run that the pipeline support. But again, it's like you needed to make sure that you have that running on a build server that supports Docker with the version of Docker that you want, and it's too many things.
Yep. Okay, that's all of the questions we have out there at the moment. Thank you again for your talk tonight, and I'm getting more and more excited about the Logic Apps V2 stuff.
Me too.
The more I hear about it, and the more I use it, because especially I just finished that project where I had 25 of the old V1s, and this is going to be so much easier to do deployment and things like that around.
Mm-hmm. And special thanks to the audience, right? We have like probably our record compared to other times. So thanks everyone that took some time from that.
Yep, and I'm working with one of the builders of the BizTalk Migrator tool to come on and do a session in either March or April.
Oh, so nice!
Good to see that. And so I'll have that information up soon. And then I know Beck is working on some stuff around, they're going to do a Logic App talk, I think sometime soon. And she's working on some deployment pipeline stuff around Logic Apps. So that'll be another one that good one we can pick up. So thanks everyone for attending, and anybody that their work colleagues missed the talk, I should have the recording up in the next day or so on the Integration Downunder, and you can go and view the recording there. Thanks everyone, and